Hello everyone, today I'm going to be opening a Star Wars customizable card game Jedi pack and just explain a little bit about what this was for those of you who didn't play the Star Wars customizable card game back in the 90s or are just interested to know more about it. So these little packets, the free Jedi pack, were actually made and given out by Decipher, the company that made Star Wars CCG. Ostensibly as a little bit of a thank you to players, but actually in a way it was a way to try and tempt people into the game a bit more, I think, and also, as we'll discover, make up for some of the deficiencies of the original premiere set. In a way, this is not the most exciting of CCG packs to open because every Jedi pack contains the same 11 cards, but nevertheless we're going to open them up, have a look at them, because I think this is still a unique little bit of CCG history from 1996. Now, those of you who've played a lot of Star Wars will be very familiar with what the backs of these cards look like. Unlike many CCGs like Magic and so on, Star Wars CCG cards had different backs depending on whether you're playing as the light side or the dark side of the Force. So if we start by having a look at what dark side cards were in the pack, and then we'll have a look at the light side ones. So this is just a little instruction and otherwise note that comes with it, with a few adverts for what else was going on at the time. The actual cards themselves, though, are probably a bit more interesting. The effect Dark Forces was not used very much. But the Lost Interrupt Gravity Shadow is actually a reasonably powerful card and not a bad one to be given away free. Probably the most interesting feature of these Jedi packs were the character cards that were given away. So for the dark side, you've got Grand Moff Tarkin and Admiral Motti, here though just referred to as Tarkin and Motti. These were two of the more powerful Imperial cards from the premiere set, and a lot of other cards actually referred to these ones. But the trouble is that they were very rare, and not many players had access to many of those decent characters that they'd seen in the films. So this pack was a way to get hold of and actually start playing with characters like Grand Moff Tarkin without having to buy loads and loads of packs and getting rare cards. However, they're a lot weaker than the versions of the cards that were actually found in the premiere set. Motti is a 3/3 character, power 3, ability 3, and Tarkin a 4/3 in the premiere set. They also are actually cheaper to deploy and have a larger forfeit value, so they're just better all round, the cards in the premiere set compared to these, but at least people were allowed to play with them and without incurring the big expenditure of buying lots of packs. Sometimes I've heard people think by mistake that these packs were actually produced as a way to for autograph hunters to get autographs of their favourite Star Wars actors. The nice blank space at the bottom and the fact that these cards were quite popular among Star Wars fans to be autographed has perhaps led people to believe that. This is not the case. The fact that Peter Cushing died in 1994, that this pack was only produced in 1996, should tell you that that obviously is not the logic for having his card in there. Finally, we'll come back to this one. The other dark side card in the pack was just the planet of Eriadu. This card, which is not really a game card at all, slightly unusual idea. It's the hyperroute navigation chart, which just lists some of the planets in the Star Wars universe and where they're supposed to be located in the game. And these numbers are important for starships travelling between the different systems. But this card is totally unnecessary because actually all of the different planet cards have their location written on them. So this one is at Parsec 1, for example. So the hyperroute navigation chart, as far as I'm concerned, nobody ever used for anything. The light side cards, arguably even more exciting, because in the light side you actually got two of the really key characters from the Star Wars universe. So Han Solo and Princess Leia two of the most famous characters from the film. Such a shame if you wanted to play the card game and didn't have those characters. But here you go. Again, like Tarkin and Motti, weaker than the original Premiere set versions, but still nevertheless something that allowed you to play. So they would never get any tournament play, but at the same time they would allow you to use those cards. So these versions were kind of popular because at least for the first few times you played the game, it was quite fun to use these characters. As you played a bit more, it became pretty obvious that you'd be outgunned by anyone who had the real versions. So most people didn't play them very long. But nevertheless, they were still pretty good for something that's being given away free. One obvious question might be, why is it Han, Leia and Grand Moff Tarkin? Why isn't it even more famous characters like Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader? Well, the answer is because as well as this free introductory pack, there was also a 2-player introductory game set that actually had to be paid for that had versions of Luke and Darth Vader in it. So I think the idea from Decipher is if you want to get started on the game, buy the 2-player set. That gives you Luke and Vader. Pick up one of these packs from either a mail-in offer or Scry magazine or a friendly neighbourhood Decipher employee, and then you had Han, Leia and Tarkin as well, plus a few other bits and pieces to get you started. So that is the Star Wars Jedi pack, a little bit of CCG history, and still pretty fun to open up after all these years.